Imagine the sharp smell of bleach burning your nostrils while you scrub a hotel bathroom floor that isn't yours, knowing the cash from that shift won't even cover the overdue electric bill or the eviction notice taped to your front door. That was my exact reality 24 months ago. I was just another invisible housekeeper, a single mom trapped in the rent cycle, relying on food stamps and driving a beater car that threatened to die at every red light. But today, in this month of January 2026, I am holding something that the bank, my loan officer, and society said a woman with my income and zip code would never have: the keys to my own home, bought and deeded in my name. I didn't win the lottery, I didn't get an inheritance, and I definitely didn't take some complex Wall Street investment course. What I did was apply a brutally simple strategy, almost ridiculous, that was born out of pure desperation in the kitchen of my Section 8 apartment. I call it the $5 method. It sounds too small to work, right? That is exactly why the system doesn't want you to know about it. While financial gurus tell you to cut out coffee, I figured out how to turn the smallest bill in your wallet into real freedom. Before I break down the exact steps of the $5 method, I need you to officially join this family. Hit that like button and subscribe right now, not just for me, but to prove to the algorithm that stories like ours actually matter. We are building a massive community of hardworking women who are tired of being invisible to the banks. I want to know exactly who is standing with me in the trenches today. Go down to the comments and tell me which city and state you are representing right now. Are you watching from a break room in Ohio or a kitchen table in Georgia? Also, drop a comment if you want me to cover handling medical collections next. Your voice drives this channel, so lock in your spot. Let's take it back to the cold, hard pavement where this journey actually started. 2 years ago, I was working 45 hours a week as a housekeeper at a budget motel on the edge of town, bringing home roughly $2,000 a month after taxes. That might sound like manageable money to some, but when your rent for a crumbling 2-bedroom apartment eats up 60% of your income, the math simply does not work. I was the definition of the working poor. I remember standing in the checkout line at Walmart, sweating in my polyester uniform, praying my debit card wouldn't get declined for a gallon of milk and a box of generic cereal. I had 2 kids depending on me and a credit score hovering around 520, which meant no decent landlord would even look at my application. I was living in that constant state of high-alert anxiety where a single unexpected mechanic bill or a sick day meant the difference between keeping the lights on or sitting in the dark. It is a suffocating normalization of scarcity that so many of us accept as our fate. We are taught that this struggle is just how life is for people like us, that we are destined to just survive the month, never actually own it. My invisibility became my greatest tool. When you clean rooms for a living, you become a ghost in other people's lives. I would wipe down mirrors and empty trash cans, observing a world I wasn't invited to. I saw receipts left on nightstands for dinners that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. But the real awakening didn't happen in the hotel. It happened at the bank teller window. I realized that the system is designed to punish poverty while rewarding wealth. When my account balance dropped below zero because an automatic bill payment hit early, the bank charged me a $35 overdraft fee. They literally took money I didn't have because I didn't have money. Meanwhile, wealthy clients with high balances get paid interest just for letting their money sit there. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Being poor is expensive. The game wasn't just hard, it was rigged. I wasn't failing because I was stupid or lazy. I was failing because I was playing by rules written to keep me on the bottom. That anger didn't break me, it woke me up. I decided to stop being a victim of the system and start hacking it. The breaking point didn't come with a bang. It came with the terrifying silence of an engine dying in the middle of a busy intersection. It was a freezing Tuesday evening in November. I had just picked up my youngest from daycare and was rushing to my second shift. The car, my lifeline, just gave up. The alternator died, and with it, my ability to earn a living. The tow truck driver demanded $150 cash on the spot. Money I did not have. I stood there on the side of the road, rain plastering my hair to my face, my daughter crying in the back seat, feeling a level of helplessness that cuts deeper than any physical pain. I had to call my sister for a ride and leave the car there, risking impoundment. That night, faced with a repair bill of $400 and zero savings, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I walked into a predatory payday loan storefront with neon signs flashing, "Fast Cash." I borrowed $500 against my next paycheck, signing a paper that locked me into an interest rate of nearly 400%. I fixed the car, but I had sold my soul. I knew that when my next check came, the loan shark would take almost all of it, leaving me with nothing for rent. I was spiraling down the drain, and the water was rising fast. I went home, sat on the linoleum floor of my kitchen, and emptied my pockets. All I had left from that chaotic day was a single, crumpled $5 bill. I stared at Abraham Lincoln's face, and something inside me snapped. I was working myself to the bone, yet I was one mechanic's bill away from homelessness. I realized that if I didn't do something drastic, something radical, I would be trapped in this cycle until I died. I looked at that $5 bill and made a pact with myself. That bill was no longer money to be spent. It was a seed. It was the first brick of my fortress. That night, amidst tears and panic, the $5 method was born. It wasn't a sophisticated investment strategy. It was a survival protocol. It was a war plan against my own poverty. The method is deceptively simple, but it requires a discipline that feels almost physical. It is built on 3 non-negotiable pillars. Pillar 1 is the cash extraction. I stopped using my debit card completely. The banks were bleeding me dry with fees, and the plastic made spending feel unreal. I started cashing my entire paycheck every 2 weeks. Holding the physical money changed the psychological weight of every purchase. When you have to hand over physical hours of your labor to buy a bag of chips, you think twice. I adopted the envelope system, separating cash for rent, utilities, and gas. If the envelope was empty, the spending stopped. There was no overdraft protection, only reality. Pillar 2 is the core, the invisible bill. I decided that every single $5 bill that touched my hands was legally dead to me. If I broke a 20 at the grocery store and got 3 5s back in change, those 5s did not exist. I could not spend them. I could not use them for gas. They had to go immediately into a locked tin box under my bed. It sounds small, but for someone on a tight budget, locking away $5 or $10 feels like cutting off a limb. It creates an artificial scarcity that forces you to be more creative with the rest of your money. It forces you to squeeze value out of every penny because your safety net is locked away in that tin box. Pillar 3 is the scavenger mindset. Since I was locking away my 5s, I had less money for daily survival. I had to become ruthless. I started meal planning based strictly on what was on clearance at the grocery store. If chicken wasn't on sale, we didn't eat chicken. I cut cable, canceled the cheap streaming service, and used the library for entertainment. I sold clothes my kids outgrew on Facebook Marketplace, not for profit, but just to generate more cash flow to convert into $5 bills. The first month was absolute hell. My friends thought I had lost my mind. They invited me out for a cheap margarita after work, and I said no. They called me stingy. My kids asked for treats at the checkout line, and I had to look them in the eye and say no, watching their faces fall. That guilt is a heavy stone to carry. There were nights I stared at the tin box, knowing there was $50 or $60 in there, and my stomach was growling because I was eating plain rice so the kids could have the meat. The temptation to break the lock was overwhelming. The voice in my head kept saying, "Just take one bill. It won't matter." But I knew if I took one, I would take them all. I had to treat that box like it was radioactive. It wasn't money. It was my future house. It was my dignity. I kept going, driven by the memory of that tow truck driver and the humiliation of the payday loan office. I worked double shifts. I cleaned extra houses on weekends, and every single $5 bill from those tips went straight into the box. It was a grind, a slow, painful crawl through the mud. But for the first time in my life, I was crawling towards something, not just away from disaster. I know some of you are listening to this and thinking, there is no way saving $5 bills can buy a house. I get it. Skepticism is a survival mechanism when you have been let down by every promise ever made to you. But I am not selling you a course here. I am showing you the receipts of my life. If you are feeling that fire in your belly, that desire to finally take control back from the creditors, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it for the woman you are going to be a year from now. And I want to hear from you in the comments below. What is the one debt that keeps you up at night? Is it the car note? The credit card? Share it, and let's break the shame surrounding it together. Stick with me, because in the next minute, I am going to show you exactly what happened when I finally opened that tin box after 12 months of disciplined silence. The numbers I am about to reveal will shock you. The first time I cracked open that tin box, 12 months to the day from my breakdown, my hands were trembling. I locked the bedroom door, pulled the shades, and dumped the contents onto my bedspread. It looked like a green mountain. It smelled like old paper and sweat and discipline. I sat there for 3 hours, smoothing out every crumpled corner, stacking Lincoln upon Lincoln. I started counting. 100, 500, 1,000, 2,000. My heart was pounding in my throat. When I laid down the final bill, the total wasn't just money. It was a scream of defiance. $5,475. That is an average of $15 a day. 3 $5 bills, stashed away every single day for a year. To a wealthy person, $5 grand is a vacation. To me, it was the first time in my adult life I had a positive net worth. It was more money than I had ever seen in one place. But the real magic wasn't the cash on the bed. It was what happened next. I didn't run to the mall. I didn't book a trip. I looked at that money with a cold, strategic calculation that I had never possessed before. The old me would have seen spending money. The new me saw freedom chips. I took $600 and walked into that payday loan office with my head held high, slammed the cash on the counter, and closed that account forever. The feeling of walking out of that neon-lit trap, debt-free, was better than any high I could ever imagine. I took another $1,000 and opened a secured credit card to start fixing my shattered 520 credit score. The rest went into a high-yield savings account, my FU fund. Then, something shifted in my brain. We call it the wealth mindset, but I call it waking up. Once I saw that I could accumulate $5,000 on a housekeeper's wage, the ceiling I had placed on my own life shattered. I became addicted to the progress. The second year wasn't a struggle, it was a sport. I started seeing $5 bills everywhere. I picked up extra shifts, not because I had to pay a bill, but because I wanted to feed the tin box. I started a side hustle cleaning specifically for move-outs on weekends, charging flat rates in cash. Every single penny from that side hustle was converted into $5 bills. My co-workers noticed the change. They asked if I had a new boyfriend or if I had won a scratch-off because I wasn't walking with my shoulders slumped anymore. I was walking with the confidence of a woman who had a secret fortress. By month 18, my credit score had climbed from the depths of hell to a respectable 680. The secured card had done its job. I had zero consumer debt, and the tin box, it was overflowing. I had to upgrade to a shoebox. I was saving nearly $800 a month now because I had eliminated all the waste from my life. I wasn't suffering. I was focused. I stopped caring about looking poor to others because I knew I was becoming rich in secret. My friends would show off their new leased cars, paying $500 a month they didn't have, while I drove my old beater, maintained with cash, knowing my bank account was growing while theirs was bleeding. The turning point came in November 2025. I walked into a mortgage lender's office. I didn't wear a suit. I wore my clean jeans and a simple shirt. The loan officer, a young guy in a sharp suit, looked at my application, housekeeper, and I saw that familiar look of pity in his eyes. He expected a rejection. He started typing, ready to give me the maybe next year speech. Then he stopped. He looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. He saw the 2 years of flawless payment history. He saw the significant cash reserves for a down payment. He saw zero debt-to-income ratio issues because I had killed my debts. "Ma'am," he said, his tone changing from pity to respect, "you qualify for an FHA loan with a remarkably good rate." Finding the house was the final battle. In this market, people like us are pushed to the fringes. I didn't look for a mansion. I looked for a solid, ugly duckling in a working-class neighborhood that was safe. I found a 2-bedroom bungalow with peeling paint and an overgrown yard, listed for $140,000. It was small, but it had good bones. The inspection showed it needed work, but I wasn't afraid of work. I put down my savings, my $5 bills, now converted into a cashier's check, covering the 3.5% down payment and closing costs. The day I signed the papers, my hand didn't shake. I signed my name 30 times, and with every signature, I was erasing generations of renter mentality from my family line. When the realtor handed me the keys, she asked me how I did it on my salary. I reached into my purse, pulled out a crisp $5 bill, and held it up. "One of these at a time," I said, driving to my new house, parking in my own driveway, and walking through a front door that no landlord could ever lock me out of. That was the moment the transformation was complete. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was an owner. I sat on the floor of the empty living room, the smell of fresh paint replacing the smell of bleach, and I cried. Not tears of despair, but tears of absolute victory. I had hacked the system with nothing but pocket change and grit. It wasn't enough to cross the finish line alone. When you grow up in the neighborhoods I did, you learn early on that survival is a team sport. If one of us eats, we all eat. So, the Monday after I got my pre-approval letter, I walked into the break room at the hotel. It was the usual scene. The smell of stale coffee, tired women rubbing their sore feet, complaining about the manager, and stressing over bills. I sat down at the chipped laminate table, pulled out my phone, and showed them the picture of my tin box right before I emptied it. Then I showed them the pre-approval letter from the bank. The room went dead silent. Brenda, a woman in her 50s who had been changing sheets for 20 years and walked with a permanent limp, grabbed the phone. She looked at the numbers, then looked at me with eyes wide and watery. "You dealing drugs, girl?" she whispered. I laughed, but it was a nervous laugh because I knew how impossible this looked. I told them everything. I broke down the $5 method right there, between bites of a cold sandwich. I told them about the discipline, the invisible bill, the tin box under the bed. At first, there was the expected wall of skepticism. "I can't save $5, one said. "I'm already negative by Tuesday," said another. But the seed was planted. I challenged them. I said, "Just try it for 1 week. Just 1 week. If you hate it, spend the money. But give me 1 week." That afternoon, 3 of them started. By Friday, it was 7. We didn't have a name for it then, but we became a silent underground resistance right there in the housekeeping department. We turned the break room into a war room. Instead of gossiping about celebrities or complaining about the guests, we started talking strategy. We compared grocery receipts. We tipped each other off about which gas station was 3 cents cheaper. We created a culture where being frugal wasn't shameful. It was a badge of honor. The transformation of Brenda was the most shocking. She was the one who said she was too old to change her life. She was drowning in medical debt from a surgery 3 years ago. She started the method with a cynicism that was almost heavy to watch. She used an old coffee can. For the first month, she grumbled every time she had to put a $5 bill in there. She called it her stupid can. But then her car insurance bill came due, a bill she usually had to put on a high-interest credit card. She opened the can, counted out the cash, and paid the bill in full. She came into work the next day looking 10 years younger. She grabbed my arm in the hallway and said, "I didn't have to call them to ask for an extension. I just paid it." That small victory lit a fire in her that I had never seen. Brenda became the fiercest advocate of the group. She started policing the others. If she saw someone walking in with a Starbucks cup, she'd raise an eyebrow and say, "That's a brick of your house you just drank." It was tough love, but it was exactly what we needed. Then there was Chloe, a 22-year-old single mom who worked the front desk. She was drowning in student loans from a semester of college she couldn't finish and was trapped in a predatory car loan. She felt hopeless, like her life was over before it began. She started the method, but she took it further. She started a side hustle group chat with us. She found out about a focus group company paying cash for opinions. She found out about an app that paid you to scan receipts. She rallied us to pool our money for bulk purchases at Costco. We would all chip in, buy the massive packs of toilet paper and rice, and split them in the parking lot. We were hacking the cost of living by acting like a collective unit instead of struggling individuals. We realized that while we were poor individually, together we had purchasing power. The movement spread beyond the hotel. I started posting anonymous updates on a local community Facebook page, sharing just the numbers and the method, never my face. I called myself the $5 architect. The response was explosive. Women from the local Walmart, from the diner down the street, from the nursing home, they all started commenting. They posted pictures of their own jars, boxes, and envelopes. It became a viral challenge in our little corner of the Rust Belt. We saw photos of a mason jar filled with fives labeled Divorce Fund, another labeled My Son's Braces, another labeled Freedom. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming agency. For women who spend their entire days serving others, cleaning up other people's messes, and being told what to do by managers who don't know their names, this method was a way to take back control. It was a secret act of rebellion. Every $5 bill dropped in a jar was a middle finger to the system that expected us to stay broke and dependent. We started meeting once a month at the public library, in a free community room. No gurus, no selling, just us. We called it the Builder's Circle. We shared stories of fighting off debt collectors. We taught each other how to negotiate medical bills down. We celebrated when someone hit a milestone, like reaching their first $1,000 saved. There were tears in those meetings, tears of relief, tears of realized potential. I remember one woman, a cafeteria worker named Maria, standing up and shaking as she held a piece of paper. It was her credit report. She had just crossed the 700 threshold. She said, "My father told me people like us don't have credit. He told me cash is for poor people and credit is for rich people, and we would never be rich. Today, I proved him wrong." The room erupted. We weren't just fixing our finances, we were healing generational trauma. We were rewriting the scripts that had been handed down to us by parents who were just as scared and broke as we were. This wasn't a viral TikTok dance trend that fades in a week. This was a deep structural shift in our community. Landlords started noticing that their tenants were paying on time. The local payday loan place actually saw a dip in traffic from our zip code. I like to think we had a hand in that. We proved that financial literacy isn't about complex charts or understanding the stock market's daily fluctuation. It's about behavior, community, and the ruthless execution of a simple plan. We proved that you don't need a six-figure salary to build wealth. You need a strategy that fits your reality. The $5 method worked because it respected our reality. It didn't ask us to invest thousands we didn't have. It asked us to respect the small money we did have. It turned our limitation into our greatest weapon. And as I watched this movement grow, as I saw the light come back into the eyes of women who had given up, I knew that buying my house was just the beginning. We were building something much bigger than 4 walls and a roof. We were building a legacy of dignity. Now, sitting here on my own front porch in January 2026, watching the snow fall on a lawn that I have to mow myself, I realized that the house was never actually the point. The house is just a pile of bricks and wood. The real trophy is what happened inside my head. You see, the $5 method didn't just change my bank account. It surgically removed the poverty mentality that had been programmed into me since birth. We are raised to believe that money is this mysterious, volatile force like the weather, something that just happens to you, something you can't control. We are told that finance is for men in suits in high-rise buildings, not for women in scrubs cleaning bedpans. But that is the lie. That is the poison they feed us to keep us running on the hamster wheel. The uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to tell you is that the entire American financial ecosystem is designed to harvest people like us. It thrives on our exhaustion. Think about it. When you work a double shift and come home dead on your feet, you are too tired to cook, so you order DoorDash. That is a tax on your exhaustion. You are too stressed to wait for the bus, so you call an Uber. That is a tax on your stress. You feel bad that you can't be there for your kids, so you buy them expensive toys on a credit card to compensate. That is a tax on your guilt. The system is engineered to extract every last cent from us by exploiting our fatigue and our emotions. They don't want you to save. A person with 6 months of expenses saved up cannot be bullied by a bad boss. A person who owns their home cannot be displaced by gentrification. A person with an 800 credit score cannot be milked for fees. Freedom is bad for their business model. They need us desperate, because desperate people take the overtime, accept the low wages, and pay the late fees without fighting back. The $5 method is a philosophy of resistance. It is about slowing down enough to see the trap. Every time I locked a bill in that box, I was buying a moment of pause. I was training myself to say, I am not going to let my emotions dictate my spending today. It taught me that wealth isn't about how much you make. It is about how much you keep. I know doctors who make $200,000 a year and are broke because they spend $201,000. And I know housekeepers like me who are building empires of stability on $30,000 a year because we learned the art of the squeeze. There is a dangerous narrative that poverty is purely a result of external circumstances. Now, don't get me wrong. The game is rigged. The wages are too low, the rent is too high, and healthcare is a scam. I will be the first to scream that from the rooftops. But if we wait for the government to save us, or for the minimum wage to double, or for a billionaire to grow a conscience, we will die waiting. We will die broke. The revolution has to start in your wallet. It has to start with the radical decision that you matter enough to save for. When you save money, you are paying your future self. When you spend everything, you are enslaving your future self to the past. My legacy isn't this house. My legacy is my children watching their mother handle money with authority. My daughter doesn't ask for things we can't afford anymore. She asks, Mom, is that a want or a need? She has her own little tin box. She is 12 years old, and she already understands compound interest better than I did at 30. That is how you break a generational curse. You don't break it with a lottery ticket. You break it by changing the conversation at the dinner table. I also stopped listening to the experts who told me I was doing it wrong. They said, cash is trash. You're losing value to inflation. They said, you should be in the stock market. Listen, when you are poor, risk is not an option. If the market crashes, the rich guy loses a yacht. I lose my food. Cash was my king, because cash is the only thing that is real when the power goes out. The $5 method gave me a floor. It gave me a foundation of concrete in a world built on quicksand. It validated the wisdom of my grandmother, who kept money in her mattress, not because she was stupid, but because she knew that banks can fail, jobs can disappear, but the money in your hand is yours. So, here is the truth I want to leave you with in this section. You are powerful. You are the CEO of your own life, even if your office is a supply closet. Do not let them convince you that you are too small to build wealth. Do not let them convince you that you need a degree to understand money. Money is simple: inflow and outflow. Control the outflow with the ruthlessness of a dictator, and the inflow will eventually find a place to stick. The $5 method is just a tool, like a mop or a wrench. But in the right hands, in your hands, it is a weapon of mass construction. We are building a new reality, $5 at a time, and there is nothing they can do to stop us. We have reached the end of my story, but we are at the very beginning of yours. If you take nothing else from this video, remember this: complexity is the enemy of execution. You do not need a financial advisor. You need a plan that you can touch. So, here is your assignment for today, right now, in this first month of 2026. Step 1. Go to the bank and withdraw your weekly spending money in cash. Leave the debit card in a drawer. Step 2. Find a container, a jar, a shoebox, an old coffee can, and put a piece of tape on it that says, "Freedom." Step 3. From this moment on, make a vow that every single $5 bill that touches your palm is invisible. You cannot spend it. You cannot trade it. It goes into the box. No exceptions. It sounds too simple to be true, but that is exactly why it works. It breaks the paralysis. If this video gave you even a spark of hope, if it made you feel seen in a world that tries to look past you, please hit that subscribe button. Join this army of women who are rewriting their futures one bill at a time. And I have one favor to ask. Share this video with just one person, your sister, your coworker, your best friend, who needs to know she isn't alone in this fight. Let's flood the comments with your commitment. Type Day 1 below if you are starting today. I read every single comment because you are my community. I will see you in the next video. And remember, you are only one decision away from a completely different life. Let's get to work.